report on its Russia investigation. And guess what? The committee found absolutely no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Here's how President Trump reacted to this decisive report.
We were honored. It was a great report. No collusion, which I knew anyway. No coordination, no nothing. It's a witch hunt. That's all it is. There was no collusion with Russia, if you can believe this one. She probably can't believe it. Who can? But the report was very powerful, very strong. There was no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian people. As I've said many times before, I've always said there was no collusion, but I've also said there has been nobody tougher on Russia than me. With that all being said, if we can get along with Russia, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. But there has been nobody tougher on Russia than me. I was very honored by the report. It was totally conclusive, strong, powerful. Many things said that nobody knew about and said in a very strong way. They were very forceful in saying that the Clinton campaign actually did contribute to Russia. So maybe somebody ought to look at that. But what we really should do is get on with our lives.
We'll have more on this in a moment, but first, the man President Trump fired from the FBI, James Comey, is in hot water tonight after a very puzzling answer he gave to Bret Baier about the anti-Trump dossier. Take a look.
You called the dossier unverified, salacious. Why did you use that to the FISA court to ask for surveillance for Carter Page? Not only use it, but you led with it. A bulk of that FISA application deals with that dossier. Why?
Yeah, that's not my recollection, Brett. And I don't know that the FISA application has been released. My recollection was it was part of a broader mosaic of facts that were laid before the FISA judge to obtain a FISA warrant.
There was a lot more than the dossier in the FISA application?
My recollection was there was a significant amount of additional material about Page and why there was probable cause to believe he was an agent of a foreign power. And the dossier was part of that, but was not all of it or a critical part of it, to my recollection.
The disgraced former director is also under fire for saying the dirty dossier did not play a significant role in the FISA warrant of a Trump campaign associate, even though two congressional memos blatantly dispute this. Take a look.
When did you learn that the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign had funded Christopher Steele's work?
Yeah, I still don't know that for a fact.
What do you mean?
I've only seen it in the media. I never knew exactly which Democrats had funded. I knew it was funded first by Republicans, opposed to Donald.
That's not true.
I'm sorry?
That's not true. That the dossier that Christopher Steele worked on was funded by Republicans?
My understanding was his work started funded by Oppo Research, funded by Republicans.
So Free Beacon and said that they had Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS on a kind of a retainer, but they did not fund the Christopher Steele memo or the dossier. That was initiated by Democrats.
Okay, my understanding was the activity was begun, that Steele was hired to look into, was first funded by Republicans, then picked up, the important thing was picked up by Democrats opposed to Donald Trump.
Joining us now with a reaction is Fox News contributor Herman Cain and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. All right, Congressman, I'm going to ask you first. What do you think of this new report by the Intel Committee, the Republican majority, actually?
Well, this report is a decisive win for the president because it supports what the president has been saying all along, and that is that Russians had a greater involvement in the drafting of the Hillary Clinton-funded Christopher Steele authored dossier than they ever had with the Trump campaign. No evidence of collusion still, and frankly, Judge Janine, this points out the need to disband the Mueller investigation because it's built on a rotten premise that has now been disproven with 250 pages of fact.
All right, and Herman Cain, to you, what is your take on this latest report from the Intel Committee?
My take, Judge Janine, is that he is not in hot water. He lied and lied and lied. And now we have to wait for the process to play itself out. Comey, I'm talking about. We now have to wait for the process to play itself out for him to end up in court such that a court judgment proves that he lied and tried to keep a cloud over this administration. He and others have tried to keep a cloud over this administration, but with this report, The clouds have parted, and now we're seeing the truth, and that's what the American people wanted to see.
You know, what's interesting, Herman, is that even though you say that, you know, we want to see the courts get involved, the truth is that the Inspector General's report was supposed to come out in April regarding Comey, and now they say May, and probably even later than that. Christopher Steele, there was a reference because he lied to the FBI, I believe it was Chairman Grassley's committee, who made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice months and months ago. Nothing's happened. We knew McCabe lied over more than several months ago. Nothing's happened. What do you think it's going to take? I think they're slow walking the documents so we don't have the evidence, so the American people get past 2018, change the House.
I absolutely agree with you. They are trying to slow walk this cloud, slow walk these investigations such that they get through November 2018. But here's the thing, Judge Janine, the American people, including some Democrats, are not stupid. We've had enough evidence come out, even through the media, that says he has lied and discredited himself, and they are not going to swallow the gullible lies that the Democrats and the liberals are trying to push on the American people. They won't be able to slow walk this one, because when that AG report comes out, it's going to be the icing on the cake.
All right. And Congressman Gates, you know, you ended by saying your last comment that, you know, it's time for the special counsel, Mueller's group to be disbanded. But today, or yesterday, I believe, it was Chairman Grassley of the Senate Judiciary who led a bill out of committee supported by a few Republicans like Lindsey Graham, saying they're going to block the president from firing Mueller and disbanding the commission. I mean, on the one hand, we've got you saying one thing, and then we've got Grassley saying another. Why is Grassley wasting his time with this kind of a bill?
Well, Senator Grassley has done a lot to contribute to our investigation of the FBI and their wrongdoing. My concern is that we have some Senate Republicans who are more worried about protecting Bob Mueller than they are about protecting the United States border and our Constitution. I wish the Senate would take up the 500 bills the House has sent over to advance the Trump agenda and to restore constitutional principles. Instead, they're wasting time on this frivolity. The Constitution could not be clearer. The employees of the executive branch work for the president, and he can fire them.
Okay. Well, there's no question about that, but I'm just going to go back to you, Congressman Gates. One of the things that Chairman Grassley answered when I asked him that very question, House passing almost 500 bills, Senate doing virtually nothing, he said, well, you know, we've got the filibuster, so I can't do anything unless I have bipartisan support. What do you say to that?
They have the filibuster because they want to have the filibuster. You know what, Judge Janine? If some Democrat wants to filibuster one of the president's appointees or meaningful legislation, let them take to the floor of the Senate and stand up and read the phone book or Dr. Seuss, and let the American people see the absurdity that is playing out in the Senate with Democrats refusing to do their job and take tough votes. And you know what? Mitch McConnell's helping them because he won't actually bring bills to the floor, and he empowers Chuck Schumer and the Democrats far too much.
Okay, and Herman
Judge
Cain, what do you say to that?
Yeah. What I say to that is he is absolutely right. Look, memo to Senate. You are not president. They're trying to micromanage the president by telling him who he can fire and not fire. It's his decision, and they seem to forget this. And this isn't the first time that they have tried to micromanage the decisions that this president has the ability to make if he wants to. Let him do his job, United States Senate, Democrats, and Republicans.
And, you know, Congressman, you know, America is fed up with Congress. They have one of the lowest approval ratings of anybody. I mean, I can't think of anyone other than career criminals who have lower approval ratings. But they're not doing anything anyway. This resistance, this obstruction. Here we are a year later, and there's nothing on Russia collusion, nothing. And the Democrats keep saying, it's coming, it's coming. And we are wasting away the ability to support this president. Republicans, too. What is their problem with President Trump?
Well, your point is accurate. Congress has a 9% approval rating. I think Muammar Gaddafi had a 13% approval rating, and his own people dragged him in the streets and killed him. So I think that we need to, get off our duffs and actually get in gear and engage in the president's agenda and move it forward. The American people did not elect this president to sit idly by and rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. We want a disruptor, someone who's going to change the ways of Washington. And frankly, we got too many swamp creatures in both parties who just want to keep everything the same. And until we start embracing this disruptive agenda to make things different inside the Beltway, I fear the American people will still have a negative view of our institution.
And Herman Cain,
Yes.
one last question. I only have a few seconds. What do you think the Democrats are going to come up with, since most of that the House Intel report by the Republicans has been redacted? I mean, are they going to come out with their own report?
No, they're going to come up with what they've always come up with: deny, denial, and distract. Those are the only taxes they have. And here's why, Judge Janine. TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, is no longer a medical disorder. It is a mental disease. That's what they're suffering from, and they're going to continue to try to drag it out until November.
All right, Herman Cain, Congressman Gates, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And President Trump has often referred to James Comey as a leaker and a liar. And in an interview with Bret Baier, the fired FBI director lived up to that reputation. Take a look at this.
I don't consider what I did with Mr. Richmond a leak. I told him about an unclassified conversation with the president.
FBI protocol says your own employment agreement with the FBI prohibits, quote, the unauthorized disclosure of any information or material from or related to FBI files or any information acquired by virtue of my official employment without prior written permission from the FBI. Did you have written permission?
No, and I didn't consider it part of an FBI file, all the things that I talked about with Anderson.
You wrote it as an FBI director. It was a work product.
No, it was not. It was my personal aide de memoir.
President?
Sure. I created 2 copies of it, one to keep in my personal safe at home, and I left another one at the FBI so the Bureau could always have access to it. But I always thought of it as mine, like a diary.
You said in the memos, I said, I don't do sneaky things, I don't leak, I don't do weasel moves. But, I mean, we can argue what a leak is, but that's a leak, isn't it?
It's not.
Okay.
Joining us now is Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp, and GOPAC Chairman David Avella. All right, I'm going to start with you, Sarah. I mean, to me, Jim Comey looked like he didn't know what to say when Bret Baier pushed back and said, this is a leak. You didn't have authority to leak it. And he says, no, he says, it's my diary, as if FBI directors have a diary and and they're able to share it with other people when it's a report.
Well, you're absolutely right, Judge Janine. And he was trying to explain, well, this was my personal memoirs, which I started at the FBI and then I put a copy of in my home. Well, nobody can do that. At the FBI, there are explicit instructions that they are given to all agents, including the director, that you cannot take your work product home with you. At the CIA, it's the same way. And in any kind of intelligence apparatus, you cannot remove documents from the office and take them home, even if you want to call them your memoirs, if you want to call them your diary. He is being caught now in a number of inconsistencies and lies, and I think this is going to come back to haunt him. Because another question that I have, Judge, and I'll say it really quick, is, Dr. Richmond, even if he was a special government employee with the FBI, he was working for the FBI, not for Comey. So he would be under the same rules and guidelines.
All right. And Matt Schlapp, I'm going to go to you next. I mean, Sarah makes a great point. This guy, Dan Richmond, who's his friend from, I think he's a Columbia professor, Columbia Law School. All right. So he gives him this special status as SGE, special government employee. I want to know, was the guy fingerprinted? Was he photographed? Was there any lie detector? I mean, was there a background check? Or is this just a guy he leaked stuff to who then was leaking stuff to other people? What's your take on that?
My take is, look, these special government employees, this is a legitimate way to get somebody into government, but it's a quick way to get them in, and sometimes a temporary way. And what I think Jim Comey had up his sleeve the whole time is, Sarah's exactly right. When I left the White House, I couldn't take any paper with me because it belonged to the taxpayers. Jim Comey wrote these memos and then colluded with his law professor friend because they were written so that they could be given to the New York Times and the Washington Post and the liberal media to prosecute the case against Donald Trump, no matter what form, with a special counsel. on the front pages of these newspapers. It was all done because Jim Comey was a never-Trumper. He doesn't think he has the character to be president, and he wants to get him out of the office at all costs.
And you know, the amazing part of it, David Avella, is that when you read the memo itself that we were all so desperately waiting to read, there's nothing in there that hurts the president that would be the genesis of a special counsel. He basically says, the president says, you know, well, do the investigation. I want to know who's doing this, and I don't need prostitutes. And Comey's dumb enough to say, Clapper told me to get there and to tell him about it. What's your take on that?
Exactly. James Comey is in the 14th minute of his 15 minutes of fame. And this book tour has done nothing except seal the prevailing view of James Comey that every answer is ultimately given to try to make him look like a hero. Sarah asked a great question. Here's one that I have. Who's going to be sitting across from FBI agents under their own investigation first, Andrew McCabe or James Comey?
Right. Right. And there is talk, Sarah, that, I mean, I could see this months ago when, you know, James Comey was tweeting things that where he was trying to make nice with McCabe, but McCabe wasn't having any of it. Now there's talk that they're going to end up, you know, McCabe saying Comey gave me the right to leak, and Comey said I didn't give him the right to leak. And yet now we've got the leaker, Dan Richmond, who's now the lawyer. They're playing the Hillary Clinton game where Cheryl Mills is a suspect and she's the lawyer, and that keeps everything on lockdown.
Yeah, I think, you know, the collusion here, Judge Janine, there was collusion. If you look at the report, there was collusion, and it was between Clapper, Comey, McCabe, all of these players colluding against the incoming president of the United States, President Trump. And we can see that how they've tried to massage this and manage this. They believed that none of this would ever come out because, first of all, they thought that Hillary Clinton would win. And then when she didn't win, they went one step further and they moved into Plan B, and now everything is being exposed. Now they're eating each other up. We see McCabe and Comey both saying that each other's stories don't match up. And I think what we're going to eventually find out is that a lot more people were leaking, a lot more people in the FBI are going to be in trouble, and a lot more people in the intelligence community.
And you know what, Matt, I mean, the whole idea of their being hoisted on their own petard, in that we don't need them to fight with each other, their inconsistencies are glaring, whether it's saying one thing in the book and another thing to Brett Baer, or whether it's Clapper who says he didn't discuss the Steele dossier with the press, but his testimony before the committee, as Trey Gowdy said, was that he did discuss it.
So it's all the same theme, which is each one of these men, whether it's Steele or McCabe or Comey, they have an intricate way of doing something that is illegal, inappropriate, and against their oath of office, which is they are releasing information that should not be given to the press, and it's not even accurate information. It's information that's used to try to go after political enemies. And I tell you this, Judge, and I've been involved in politics too dang long, if there's no collusion with Russia and there's not one scintilla of evidence from anything, the American people are fair. And I think that Donald Trump has done a great service at great cost and great pain to a lot of people. But he has exposed these liars and leakers that are entrenched in these powerful positions. And it's important for the American people to sweep them out of government.
And, you know, David Avella, I mean, last question. When you look at what is obvious to those of us who are really watching everything that's been happening over the last year, you've got James Comey has gone from the FBI. Andrew McCabe has gone from the FBI. Rybicki has gone from the FBI, the chief of staff, as is Baker, who was the counsel. So you've got that whole upper echelon. Strzok and Page, in spite of their biases, they're still there, but there is evidence or information, I should say, that they're cooperating. I mean, the fact that that whole upper echelon is gone, what does it tell you?
Well, it confirms what all the local agents want, because they're frustrated by how this makes the FBI look. And if you talk to local agents, they want all of the upper management of the FBI cleaned out because it's making the entire bureau look bad. The most important thing the president said today was it's time to move on with our lives. Here's the unfortunate thing, Judge, and what's extremely important. The average special counsel investigation goes 1,154 days. This isn't about influencing the 2018 elections. This is about Democrats and their allies in the media affecting the 2020 elections.
Interesting. All right. Thanks to you all for being on this evening.